Master Sergeant Ricky Simmons inherited an ugly alien girl, and his world turned upside down. The revelation hit him like a plasma burst as he crouched behind a crumbling wall on Nexus Prime, the acrid smell of ionized air burning his nostrils. "You've got to be kidding me, sir," Ricky growled into his comms, the sounds of battle raging around him. His commanding officer's voice crackled through the static, confirming the unbelievable news. As part of an obscure interstellar treaty, Ricky was now the legal guardian of an Illyrian female named Brin. The timing couldn't have been worse. Fort Horizon, the human stronghold, was under heavy assault from Illyrian forces. Ricky's squad was pinned down, desperately holding the line against waves of technologically superior enemies. And now this bombshell. A near miss from an Illyrian energy weapon scorched the ground next to Ricky, snapping him back to the present. He peeked over the wall, his enhanced combat visor zooming in on the advancing Illyrian troops. Their chitinous armor gleamed in the harsh light of Nexus Prime's twin suns. "Sir, what's the strategic value of this inheritance?" Ricky asked, his voice strained as he fired a burst from his pulse rifle, downing an Illyrian soldier. The answer came as Brin materialized beside him, her sudden appearance making Ricky recoil instinctively. Multiple eyes blinked at him from a face covered in iridescent scales. Chitinous appendages twitched nervously at her sides. Ricky's initial revulsion was tempered by the realization of what her presence meant. Brin had teleported directly into an active war zone. Her psionic abilities were far beyond anything humans had encountered before. "Protect her at all costs, Sergeant," his CO barked. "She's the last of her kind, and her abilities could turn the tide of this war." As if to demonstrate, Brin's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. A group of advancing Illyrians suddenly turned on each other, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. Ricky watched in awe as the enemy tore itself apart. "Holy hell," he breathed, understanding dawning. This was why the Illyrians wanted her back so badly. This was why they had launched this massive assault on Fort Horizon. A high-pitched keening sound filled the air, and Ricky noticed Brin's body beginning to pulse with energy. Her reproductive cycle, he realized with a start. It was tied to her psionic outbursts. The implications hit him like a freight train. To fully harness Brin's powers, to give humanity the edge it desperately needed in this war, he would need to do more than just protect her. He would need to become her mate. Ricky's squad members, having noticed Brin's arrival, reacted with a mix of disgust and fascination. Private Chen openly gagged, while Corporal Rodriguez eyed the alien with undisguised curiosity. "Sarge, what the hell is that thing?" Sergeant Miller shouted over the din of battle. Before Ricky could respond, a massive explosion rocked the battlefield. The Illyrians were bringing in their heavy artillery. Fort Horizon's shields flickered ominously. As debris rained down around them, Ricky made a split-second decision. He grabbed Brin's scaly hand, ignoring the alien sensation, and pulled her close. "Stay with me," he ordered, his voice gruff but not unkind. "We're getting you to the command center." As they ran, dodging enemy fire and leaping over rubble, Ricky's mind raced. He was Earth's most decorated soldier, a war hero, but now his loyalty was being tested in ways he never imagined. The fate of humanity might rest on his willingness to embrace this ugly alien girl and all she represented. The walls of Fort Horizon loomed before them, a promise of temporary safety. But as Ricky glanced at Brin, her alien features softened by fear and trust, he knew the real battle was just beginning. A battle not just for survival, but for the very definition of what it meant to be human in a vast, complex universe. Ricky and Brin burst through the reinforced doors of Fort Horizon, the sounds of battle fading behind them. Alarms blared throughout the complex as they raced towards the command center, their footsteps echoing off the metal walls. "Sergeant Simmons reporting with the package," Ricky barked into his comms as they rounded a corner. He cast a sideways glance at Brin, still marveling at her alien features. But as they ran, something unexpected began to happen. Brin's form started to shimmer, her body undulating like a mirage in the desert. Ricky blinked, thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him after the intense firefight. "Brin?" he asked, slowing his pace. "Are you changing?" Before his eyes, Brin's multiple eyes merged into two glowing orbs, her scaly skin smoothing into an iridescent surface that shimmered under the harsh fluorescent lights. Her chitinous appendages reshaped themselves into graceful limbs. Ricky's jaw dropped as he watched the ugly alien girl transform into a being of otherworldly beauty. He shook his head, trying to clear it. What the hell is happening? They arrived at the command center, bursting through the doors. Colonel William Hawkins turned from the holographic display of the battle, his eyes widening as he took in Brin's new appearance. "Sergeant, report," Hawkins ordered, his voice tight with tension. Before Ricky could respond, Dr. Elena Rossi pushed her way forward, her eyes gleaming with scientific curiosity. "Fascinating," she breathed, circling Brin. "It seems her proximity to humans, specifically to Sergeant Simmons, has triggered a metamorphosis." Ricky's squad members filed into the room, their reactions to Brin's transformation ranging from awe to suspicion. Corporal Jake Martinez's gaze lingered on Brin, a look of open admiration on his face. "Eyes front, Corporal," Ricky snapped, a sudden surge of protectiveness washing over him. Dr. Rossi approached Ricky, her tablet in hand. "Sergeant, I'm picking up some anomalous readings from you as well. Your vitals are changing." Ricky flexed his hand, suddenly aware of a newfound strength coursing through his body. His senses felt sharper, more acute. A flash of awareness hit him, and for a brief moment, he could sense the positions of everyone in the room without looking. "What's happening to me?" he asked, his voice low. Dr. Rossi's eyes lit up. "It seems that your connection to Brin is affecting you as well. This could be groundbreaking for our war effort. We need to run tests immediately." Colonel Hawkins nodded grimly. "Agreed. Dr. Rossi, take them to the lab. We need to understand—" An explosion rocked the base, cutting off Hawkins mid-sentence. The holographic display flickered, showing a massive Illyrian war machine advancing on Fort Horizon. "Sir," a communications officer called out, "we're picking up a massive energy signature. It looks like some kind of psionic amplifier." Hawkins cursed. "Our shields won't hold against that. We need options now." All eyes turned to Brin and Ricky. Dr. Rossi stepped forward, her voice clinical but tinged with excitement. "There might be a way. If we can fully activate the shared potential between Sergeant Simmons and Brin through a process I'm terming biopsionic fusion, we might have a chance against that weapon." Ricky's mind reeled. "Biopsionic fusion? What exactly does that entail, Doctor?" Dr. Rossi hesitated, then spoke plainly. "To put it bluntly, Sergeant, it would require you and Brin to engage in a form of physical intimacy." The room fell silent, the only sound the distant rumble of explosions. Ricky looked at Brin, her alien yet beautiful features filled with a mix of fear and trust. He thought of his duty, his training, everything he stood for as a soldier of Earth. Before he could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "This is outrageous!" Major Samuel Rhodes, the base's political officer, stormed into the room. "We can't seriously be considering this abomination." Rhodes pointed an accusing finger at Brin. "That thing is a threat to human purity. It should be terminated immediately." Ricky stepped in front of Brin protectively, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. "Stand down, Major," he growled. Colonel Hawkins raised his hands, trying to calm the situation. "Everyone, we need to think rationally. The fate of Fort Horizon hangs in the balance." Another explosion shook the base, more violent than before. Alarms blared as a voice came over the intercom. "Breach in Sector 7. Illyrian forces have penetrated the outer defenses." Ricky looked from Brin to his commanding officers, the weight of the impossible choice bearing down on him. The fate of not just Fort Horizon, but potentially the entire human resistance rested on his decision. As chaos erupted around him, Ricky felt a gentle touch on his arm. He turned to see Brin looking at him, her luminous eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't quite name. In that moment, he realized that despite her alien origins, there was something undeniably human in her gaze. The alarms continued to blare, signaling the imminent fall of Fort Horizon's defenses. Time was running out. Ricky Simmons, Earth's most decorated soldier, stood at the crossroads of humanity's future, facing a decision that would change the course of the war and his life forever. Ricky's mind raced, weighing the implications of Dr. Rossi's proposal against his duty as a soldier. The base shuddered again, dust raining down from the ceiling. In that moment, he made his decision. "We'll do it," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "But not here. We need a secure location." Colonel Hawkins nodded grimly. "The reinforced chamber in Sector 4. It was designed for high-risk experiments. Go, now." Ricky grabbed Brin's hand, marveling at the alien yet oddly comforting sensation of her touch. They sprinted through the corridors, alarms blaring and personnel rushing past them in organized chaos. Dr. Rossi followed close behind, her tablet clutched to her chest. As they reached the chamber, Ricky's enhanced senses picked up the sound of heavy footsteps approaching rapidly. He turned to see Colonel Hawkins bursting into the room, flanked by a squad of armed soldiers. "Hold it right there, Sergeant," Hawkins bellowed, his face a mask of conflicted emotions. "We can't proceed without proper authorization. The risks are—" His words were cut short as the base rocked violently, the lights flickering ominously. A voice crackled over the intercom, tinged with panic. "Psionic attack detected. Shields at critical levels." Ricky stepped forward, placing himself between Brin and the soldiers. "Sir, with all due respect, we don't have time for bureaucracy. Every second we waste puts more lives at risk." The tension in the room was palpable, a standoff that could tip either way. Suddenly, a figure pushed through the group of soldiers, his face contorted with rage. "This ends now," Major Rhodes shouted, raising his sidearm and aiming it squarely at Brin. Time seemed to slow for Ricky. His newly heightened reflexes kicked in, and he moved with inhuman speed. Before Rhodes could squeeze the trigger, Ricky had closed the distance between them, wrenching the weapon from the Major's grasp and pinning him against the wall. "Stand down, Major," Ricky growled, his voice low and dangerous. Colonel Hawkins watched the scene unfold, his expression shifting from shock to resignation. Another violent tremor shook the base, more severe than before. The colonel's shoulders sagged as he made his decision. "Do it," he said, his voice barely audible above the alarms. "Simmons, Brin, proceed with the fusion. It's our only shot." Ricky nodded, releasing Rhodes and moving back to Brin's side. Dr. Rossi quickly began setting up her monitoring equipment, her fingers flying over her tablet. "Ready when you are," she said, a mix of fear and excitement in her eyes. Ricky turned to Brin, their eyes meeting in a moment of silent communication. He reached out, gently taking her hands in his. As their skin made contact, a faint glow began to emanate from their bodies. "Focus on me," Ricky said softly, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Whatever happens, we're in this together." As their connection deepened, the glow intensified. Ricky felt a surge of energy coursing through his body, unlike anything he had ever experienced. His mind expanded, consciousness merging with Brin's in a swirling vortex of memories and sensations. Suddenly, he was no longer in the chamber. Ricky found himself in an Illyrian laboratory, watching through Brin's eyes as she was created. He felt her fear, her confusion, and then hope. He saw faces of Illyrians who looked upon her not with malice, but with a desperate desire for peace. The vision shifted and Ricky understood. Brin was more than a weapon or a scientific curiosity. She was a bridge created by a faction of Illyrians who sought to end the war with humanity. Back in the chamber, the fusion reached its climax. A pulse of energy burst forth from Ricky and Brin, expanding outward in a rapidly growing sphere. Electronic equipment sparked and died as the wave passed through it. The soldiers stumbled back, shielding their eyes from the intense light. As quickly as it began, the fusion ended. Ricky and Brin collapsed to the floor, their bodies smoking slightly. Dr. Rossi rushed forward, her equipment miraculously still functioning. "Incredible," she breathed, scanning them both. "Their genetic structure is changing, evolving into something new." Before anyone could respond, the intercom crackled to life. "The Illyrian psionic amplifier has been neutralized. Our forces are rallying." A cheer went up from the soldiers, but it was short-lived. Another voice cut through the celebration, urgent and fearful. Multiple breaches detected in Sectors 2 and 3. Elite Illyrian strike team has penetrated our defenses. Colonel Hawkins snapped into action, barking orders to his men. Secure the perimeter. We cannot let them reach Simmons and Brin. Ricky struggled to his feet, his body feeling both incredibly powerful and dangerously unstable. He helped Brin up, noticing that her form was flickering, shifting between her human-like appearance and her original alien form. "Sir," Ricky said, his voice hoarse, "I can sense them. The Illyrian team, they're led by someone called Zaxalor. He's unlike anything we've faced before." Hawkins' eyes widened. "Zaxalor? The butcher of Proxima Centauri? How can you possibly know that?" Before Ricky could answer, the doors to the chamber burst open. An Illyrian warrior stood framed in the entrance, his armor more elaborate and menacing than any they had seen before. Behind him, the sounds of intense fighting echoed through the corridors. "I am Commander Zaxalor," the Illyrian announced, his voice a guttural growl, "and I have come for the abomination and her human pet." Ricky stepped forward, his body crackling with unstable energy. He could feel Brin beside him, their powers intertwining in ways he didn't yet understand. As Zaxalor advanced, Ricky knew that the real battle was only just beginning. Ricky's muscles tensed as he prepared for the inevitable clash with the notorious Illyrian commander. Suddenly, a surge of energy coursed through Ricky's body, different from the unstable power he had felt moments ago. He glanced at Brin and saw her surrounded by a soft, pulsating glow. Their eyes met, and in that instant, a powerful psionic shield erupted around them, pushing back the advancing Illyrians. Zaxalor stumbled, his menacing stride halted by the unexpected barrier. The human defenders, who had been bracing for impact, let out a collective gasp of relief. In the brief respite that followed, Dr. Elena Rossi burst into action. She sprinted towards Ricky and Brin, clutching a sleek metallic device in her hands. "Sergeant Simmons," she called out, her voice tinged with urgency. "This prototype might help stabilize your abilities. It's a psionic harmonizer." Ricky eyed the device warily. "Is it safe?" Before Dr. Rossi could respond, Colonel Hawkins's voice cut through the tension. "Use it, Simmons. That's an order. It's our best shot at survival." Ricky hesitated for a split second, then nodded. "Do it, Doctor." With practiced precision, Dr. Rossi attached the harmonizer to both Ricky and Brin. The effect was instantaneous and dramatic, the erratic energy coursing through their bodies smoothed out, becoming a steady, controlled flow. Ricky flexed his fingers, marveling at the newfound stability. He turned to Brin, seeing his own amazement mirrored in her alien features. Without a word, they understood each other perfectly. As one, they faced Zaxalor and his elite squad. The Illyrian commander's eyes narrowed, sensing the shift in power dynamics. "Attack!" Zaxalor roared, his guttural voice echoing through the chamber. Ricky and Brin moved in perfect synchronization, their movements fluid and precise. Psionic energy crackled around them as they engaged the Illyrian forces. Ricky found himself anticipating attacks before they came, his mind working in tandem with Brin's. As they fought, Ricky realized he could understand the guttural commands Zaxalor barked at his soldiers. The Illyrian language, once an incomprehensible series of growls and clicks, now made perfect sense to him. "Flank them!" Zaxalor ordered in Illyrian. "Capture the hybrid alive!" Ricky's eyes widened. He turned to Colonel Hawkins. "Sir, they're trying to capture Brin." Hawkins nodded grimly. "Then we don't let them. Push them back, Sergeant." With renewed commitment, Ricky and Brin pressed their advantage. Their combined psionic abilities manifested in ways they hadn't imagined possible. Energy shields deflected Illyrian weapons, while focused blasts of psionic force sent enemy soldiers flying. As they pushed the Illyrians back towards the entrance, a deep rumble shook the entire base. Through the viewport, Ricky caught sight of a massive ship entering the planet's atmosphere. Its design was unlike anything he had ever seen, a blend of organic forms and advanced technology. "The Emperor," Brin whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and fear. The Illyrian forces faltered, clearly unprepared for their leader's arrival. Zaxalor's head snapped towards the viewport, his composure cracking for the first time. Seizing the moment of confusion, Ricky launched himself at Zaxxler. The Illyrian commander, caught off guard, barely managed to raise his weapon in defense. In the ensuing struggle, Ricky's hand caught the edge of Zaxxler's helmet, tearing it away. Time seemed to slow as the helmet clattered to the ground. Ricky found himself staring into a face that could have been his own reflection, save for the alien skin tone and some subtle differences in bone structure. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even Brin seemed shocked, her attack on another Illyrian soldier pausing mid-strike. Zaxxler's eyes, so similar to Ricky's own, widened in disbelief. For a moment, the battle seemed to freeze, both sides grappling with the implications of this revelation. Ricky's mind raced. The resemblance couldn't be coincidence. Somehow, humans and Illyrians shared a connection far deeper than anyone had imagined. Snapping out of his shock, Ricky nodded to Brin. Together, they unleashed a combined psionic assault that overwhelmed Zaxxler and his remaining forces. The Illyrian soldiers collapsed, incapacitated but alive. As the dust settled, Colonel Hawkins approached Ricky and Brin. "Well done," he said, his voice gruff but appreciative. "But I'm afraid our work isn't done yet." He gestured towards the viewport, where the Emperor's ship had landed just outside the base. "We need to meet with the Illyrian Emperor. Simmons, Brin, you're with me. You're our best chance at successful negotiations." Before they could move, the sound of multiple footsteps echoed from the corridor. Major Samuel Rhodes burst into the room, flanked by a group of soldiers with armbands bearing the symbol of the Human Purist movement. "This ends now!" Rhodes shouted, his face contorted with rage. "We will not negotiate with these aliens. Humanity must stand alone." Ricky found himself at the center of a tense standoff. To one side stood Colonel Hawkins and the path to potential peace. On the other, Major Rhodes and his purists threatened to reignite the war. And approaching from outside were the Illyrians, their intentions still unknown. As if the situation wasn't complicated enough, Dr. Rossi's voice cut through the tension. "Sergeant Simmons, Brin, the harmonizer is showing signs of instability. Continued use of your powers could be dangerous." Ricky's mind raced, weighing his options. The fate of two species hung in the balance, and he found himself at the crux of it all. His connection with Brin pulled him towards peace, but years of fighting the Illyrians warred with that impulse. As weapons were drawn on all sides and the Illyrian Emperor's honor guard approached the base's entrance, Ricky knew he had to make a decision. Whatever he chose would alter the course of human-Illyrian relations forever. He took a deep breath, feeling the unstable energy of the harmonizer coursing through him. Time seemed to slow as he prepared to make his choice, the weight of two worlds resting squarely on his shoulders. He looked at Brin, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. With a nod, they stepped forward together, positioning themselves between the human factions and the approaching Illyrian delegation. The sudden movement caught everyone off guard. Weapons lowered slightly as confusion rippled through both sides. Ricky seized the moment, his hand moving to the psionic harmonizer attached to his chest. "Wait!" Dr. Rossi called out, her voice filled with concern. "The device is unstable." Ignoring her warning, Ricky activated the harmonizer. A soft hum filled the air as the device pulsed with energy. He felt a surge of power course through his body, more controlled than before but still tinged with an underlying current of instability. Taking a deep breath, Ricky spoke, his words echoing in both English and the guttural clicks of the Illyrian language. "Both sides, stand down. We have a chance for peace here. Let's not throw it away." His declaration was met with stunned silence. The Illyrian delegation, which had been advancing cautiously, halted in their tracks. From their midst emerged a towering figure, his scaled skin adorned with pulsating bioluminescent patterns. "I am Emperor Zorax," the imposing Illyrian announced, his voice a low rumble. "And I find myself intrigued by this unexpected development." Colonel Hawkins stepped forward, his posture tense but his voice steady. "Your Majesty, I am Colonel Hawkins of Earth's Defense Forces. We're open to discussing terms for a ceasefire." As Hawkins spoke, Ricky noticed movement from the corner of his eye. Major Rhodes and his purist faction were shifting, their faces contorted with rage. "Traitors!" Rhodes snarled, raising his weapon. "We will not negotiate with these monsters." In a heartbeat, chaos erupted. Rhodes and his men opened fire, their bullets streaking towards both the Illyrian delegation and Ricky and Brin. Without conscious thought, Ricky reached out with his mind, feeling Brin's consciousness intertwine with his own. A shimmering dome of psionic energy burst into existence, deflecting the incoming fire. Gasps of awe and fear echoed through the chamber as the bullets ricocheted harmlessly away. Emperor Zorax's eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and curiosity evident in his alien features. "Fascinating," he murmured. "Perhaps there is more to gain from peace than I initially thought." As the Emperor spoke, Ricky felt a sharp pain in his chest. The psionic harmonizer was growing hot, vibrating erratically. Arcs of energy began to crackle across his skin, mirrored on Brin's form beside him. "Ricky!" Dr. Rossi shouted, rushing towards them with a scanner in hand. "The harmonizer is overloading. We need to remove it now." Before Ricky could respond, a commotion near the fallen Illyrian soldiers caught his attention. Commander Zaxalir was stirring, pushing himself to his feet with a groan. His eyes, so eerily similar to Ricky's own, darted around the room, taking in the scene. For a moment, Zaxalor's gaze locked with Ricky's. Something passed between them, an unspoken understanding. Then, to everyone's shock, the Illyrian commander turned and began barking orders at his remaining forces. "Stand down," Zaxalor commanded in his native tongue. "These humans are not our enemies." As Zaxalor moved to subdue his own troops, Emperor Zorax stepped closer to Ricky and Brin, his massive form radiating an aura of authority. "Young ones," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle, "I believe it is time we had a proper discussion about the future of our peoples." Ricky nodded, but another surge of pain from the harmonizer made him wince. Dr. Rossi's voice cut through the haze of discomfort. "We don't have time for discussions," she insisted. "The harmonizer is reaching critical levels. If we don't remove it now, the energy buildup could be catastrophic." Emperor Zorax's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. "I may have a solution," he offered. "Our ship is equipped with stasis technology that could safely contain the energy surge. However," he paused, his gaze meeting Ricky's, "it would require you and your companion to leave Earth. The process is complex, and I cannot guarantee when or if you would be able to return." The weight of the Emperor's words hung heavy in the air. Ricky's mind raced considering the implications. Leave Earth? Abandon everything and everyone he knew? But if he stayed, the harmonizer's failure could put everyone at risk. Before he could voice his thoughts, a new alarm blared through the base. Colonel Hawkins's eyes widened in horror as he checked a nearby console. "Rhodes has activated the base's defense system," Hawkins shouted. "He's targeting the Illyrian ship." Ricky watched as massive turrets outside the base swiveled towards the landed Illyrian vessel, their barrels glowing with building energy. The situation had spiraled out of control, and he knew he had to act fast. With the harmonizer sending waves of unstable energy through his body, alarms blaring, and weapons primed to fire, Ricky stood at the crossroads of two worlds. His decision in the next few moments would shape the future of human-Illyrian relations forever. He looked at Brin, seeing his own fear and drive reflected in her alien eyes. Then, gritting his teeth against the pain, Ricky turned to face Emperor Zorax, ready to make his choice. Decision. His eyes locked with Emperor Zorax's, a silent understanding passing between them. "We accept your offer," Ricky said, his voice firm despite the pain radiating from the harmonizer. In that instant, chaos erupted. The base's defense system roared to life, massive turrets swiveling towards the Illyrian ship. Alarms blared, their shrill cries piercing the air. "Rhodes, you fool!" Colonel Hawkins shouted, his face contorted with anger and disbelief. Ricky didn't hesitate. He grabbed Brin's hand, their fingers intertwining as they sprinted towards the Illyrian vessel. The world around them blurred, adrenaline and psionic energy fueling their desperate dash. Behind them, the sounds of conflict erupted. Colonel Hawkins barked orders, his loyal troops moving to disable the weapon system. Gunfire erupted as Rhodes's human purist faction fought back, their hatred for the aliens overriding all reason. Commander Zaxelor appeared at Ricky's side, his weapon raised, providing cover fire as they raced towards the ship. Energy blasts sizzled past them, the air thick with ozone and the acrid smell of discharged weapons. They reached the ship's entrance, the alien metal cool beneath Ricky's touch as he helped Brin aboard. The harmonizer on his chest pulsed erratically, waves of pain threatening to overwhelm him. "Ricky!" Dr. Rossi's voice cut through the chaos. She appeared beside them, her face flushed from exertion. "The harmonizer! We need to remove it now!" With deft movements, Dr. Rossi detached the device from Ricky's chest. The moment it came free, a surge of uncontrolled energy coursed through him. Beside him, Brin gasped, her body glowing with the same wild power. Emperor Zorax's massive form loomed over them. "This way!" he commanded, leading them deeper into the ship. They stumbled down sleek corridors, their uncontrolled powers leaving scorch marks on the walls. Illyrian crew members scattered before them, their alien faces a mixture of fear and awe. They reached a chamber dominated by a sleek pod, its surface pulsing with strange alien energy. "The stasis chamber," Emperor Zorax explained quickly. "It will contain and stabilize your powers." Ricky and Brin stumbled into the pod, their bodies pressed close together in the confined space. As the chamber sealed around them, Ricky felt a strange tingling sensation spread across his skin. Through the transparent cover, he saw Dr. Rossi's worried face. She mouthed something he couldn't hear, her eyes wide with concern. Suddenly, the ship lurched. Emperor Zorax's voice boomed through the chamber. "Emergency launch! Brace for impact!" The world outside the pod became a blur of motion. Ricky felt the vibrations of the ship's engines, the vessel straining against gravity as it lifted off. Through the viewport, he caught a glimpse of Fort Horizon growing smaller, its weapon system firing a fraction of a second too late. The beam of energy missed them by mere meters, instead striking the ground near the base. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves through the planet's crust. As they ascended, Ricky watched in horror as massive fissures spread across the landscape below. The ship shuddered, alarms blaring throughout its structure. Ricky's uncontrolled psionic energy crackled around him, interacting with the stasis pod's alien technology. Sparks flew from nearby consoles, the ship's systems overloading from the unexpected power surge. Emperor Zorax's face appeared in the viewport, his expression grim. "Hold on," he said, his voice barely audible through the pod's seal. "We're taking you into orbit. The stasis process is beginning now." A cool mist filled the pod, and Ricky felt his consciousness begin to fade. The last thing he saw was Brin's face, her features shifting and changing as the stasis took effect. When Ricky's eyes opened again, he felt different. The pod's cover slid away, and he sat up, blinking in the bright light of the ship's medical bay. He caught sight of his reflection in a nearby screen and gasped. His skin now sported iridescent patches, shimmering with an otherworldly glow. His muscles felt denser, more powerful. Beside him, Brin stirred, her form now more humanoid than before, with only subtle alien features remaining. Emperor Zorax approached, flanked by an Illyrian female wearing what appeared to be a scientific uniform. "Welcome back," the Emperor said. "Allow me to introduce Dr. Zira, our chief geneticist. She'll be studying your unique physiology during our journey to the Illyrian homeworld." Dr. Zira stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with scientific curiosity. "Fascinating," she murmured, scanning them with an alien device. "Your hybrid physiology is remarkably stable, far more advanced than any previous attempts at genetic blending." Before Ricky could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Commander Zaxelor burst into the medical bay, his face tense. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing quickly to Emperor Zorax. "We have a situation. A faction loyal to Admiral Kralthor is attempting to seize control of the ship." Ricky exchanged a glance with Brin, surprised to find he could sense her thoughts and emotions as clearly as his own. Their mental link had grown stronger, evolving into something far beyond what they had experienced before. "We can help," Ricky said, standing up. He felt Brin's agreement through their connection, their shared grit to protect the fragile peace they had sacrificed so much to achieve. As they moved to follow Zaxelor, Dr. Zira called out, her voice tinged with urgency. "Wait, there's something you need to know about your transformation. But her words were cut off as the ship rocked violently, the sound of weapons fire echoing through the corridors. Ricky and Brin stepped out of the medical bay, their newfound powers humming beneath their skin, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in their strange new existence between two worlds. As they stepped into the corridor, the ship lurched again, nearly throwing them off balance. Ricky steadied Brin, their newfound connection allowing them to move in perfect synchronization. Commander Zaxelor led them through the winding passages of the ship, his weapon at the ready. The sounds of conflict grew louder as they approached the bridge. Suddenly, Dr. Zira's voice crackled over the ship's communication system. "Ricky, Brin, you need to return to the medical bay immediately. Your transformation isn't complete." Ricky exchanged a glance with Brin, their shared thoughts weighing the urgency of the situation against Dr. Zira's warning. Before they could decide, the corridor ahead erupted in weapons fire. A group of Illyrian rebels loyal to Admiral Kralthor had breached the security perimeter. "We don't have time," Ricky said, his voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "We need to end this now." Brin nodded, her eyes glowing with psionic energy. Together they stepped forward, raising their hands in unison. A wave of invisible force rippled through the air, knocking the rebels off their feet. As they fought their way to the bridge, Ricky felt the changes in his body accelerating. His skin tingled, patches of iridescence spreading across his arms. Beside him, Brin's features shifted subtly, becoming a more perfect blend of human and Illyrian. They burst onto the bridge to find Emperor Zorax engaged in a fierce firefight with the rebel forces. The massive Illyrian leader's eyes widened as he saw Ricky and Brin. "You shouldn't be here," he growled, deflecting an energy blast with his personal shield. "Your transformation is exactly what we need right now," Ricky interrupted, stepping forward. He felt Brin's agreement through their link, their shared grit fueling their actions. Together they raised their hands, channeling their combined psionic energy. The air around them crackled with power, and suddenly the weapons of both loyalists and rebels alike shut down. In the sudden silence, Emperor Zorax's voice boomed across the bridge. "This conflict ends now. We stand on the brink of a new era for both our peoples." The rebels hesitated, their eyes fixed on Ricky and Brin. The hybrid pair stood tall, their forms now unmistakably a perfect blend of human and Illyrian. Their skins shimmered with an otherworldly glow, their eyes possessing a depth that spoke of knowledge beyond their years. What are you?" one of the rebels asked, his voice a mixture of awe and fear. Ricky stepped forward, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "We are the future, a bridge between our two species, and we're here to stop this war." Dr. Zira burst onto the bridge, her scientific curiosity overriding any sense of danger. She scanned Ricky and Brin with her device, her eyes widening at the results. "Incredible," she breathed. "Your genetic structures have fully merged. You've achieved a level of hybridization we thought impossible." Emperor Zorax approached, his massive form towering over them. "Then perhaps it's time we put that hybridization to the test. Admiral Kralthor's fleet is approaching. If we can't convince them to stand down, this war will escalate beyond our control." Ricky felt a surge of willpower through his link with Brin. They turned to face the Emperor, their voices blending in perfect harmony. "We're ready." The Emperor nodded, leading them to a specialized chamber off the bridge. Dr. Zira followed, explaining rapidly. "This chamber is designed to enhance and focus psionic abilities," she said, activating a series of controls. "With your hybrid physiology, you should be able to broadcast your thoughts across the entire fleet." As Ricky and Brin stepped into the chamber, they felt their connection deepen even further. Their minds merged, becoming a single consciousness with the combined knowledge and experience of both human and Illyrian. Through the chamber's viewport, they could see Admiral Kralthor's fleet approaching, weapons primed. Emperor Zorax's voice came through the communication system. "We're out of time. Whatever you're going to do it now." Ricky and Brin closed their eyes, focusing their combined will. The chamber hummed with energy, amplifying their psionic output. In their shared mind's eye, they could see the entire fleet, feel the thoughts and emotions of every being aboard. They projected their story, the pain, the fear, the hope that had led them to this moment. They showed the potential for peace, for a future where humans and Illyrians could coexist and thrive together. As their message spread across the fleet, they felt a shift in the collective consciousness. Weapons powered down, shields deactivated, and in the flagship of the approaching fleet, Admiral Crowthor himself stood in awe of the vision presented to him. The Admiral's voice crackled over the communication system. "Emperor Zorax, I had no idea. These hybrids, they're extraordinary. Perhaps it's time we discuss terms for a real, lasting peace." As Ricky and Brin emerged from the chamber, exhausted but triumphant, they knew their journey was just getting started. The war might be ending, but the real work of bringing their two peoples together was just beginning. Dr. Zyra approached, her face serious. "We need to complete your transformation. The process you have undergone is unprecedented, and we don't know the long-term effects." Ricky and Brin nodded, their shared consciousness already aware of the changes still occurring within them. As they followed Dr. Zyra back to the medical bay, they could feel the weight of their newfound responsibility settling on their shoulders. They were no longer simply human or Illyrian. They were something new, something that could reshape the future of both their species. And as they prepared for the next phase of their transformation, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Together, united in their purpose to shape a better future for both species. As they entered the medical bay, Dr. Zyra's eyes widened at the sight of their further transformed state. "Remarkable," she breathed, quickly ushering them to a pair of examination tables. "Your hybridization has progressed even further. We must stabilize your condition before we proceed." While Dr. Zyra worked, Emperor Zorax entered the medical bay, his massive frame filling the doorway. "We have a unique opportunity," he announced, his voice grave. "Admiral Crowthor has agreed to a ceasefire, but we need to act quickly to ensure lasting peace." Ricky and Brin exchanged a glance, their shared consciousness already grasping the Emperor's plan. "You want us to broadcast our story to the entire fleet," Ricky said, his voice resonating with newfound authority. "Precisely," Emperor Zorax nodded. "Your combined experiences could be the key to ending this conflict once and for all." As Dr. Zyra completed her work, stabilizing their hybrid physiology, Ricky and Brin felt a surge of energy coursing through their bodies. They stood, their forms now a perfect blend of human and Illyrian traits, radiating an otherworldly aura. "We're ready," Brin said, her voice harmonizing with Ricky's. They were led to the flagship's communication center, a vast chamber filled with advanced alien technology. Admiral Crowthor was waiting for them, his expression a mix of curiosity and cautious hope. "The fate of both our peoples rests on your shoulders," the Admiral said, gesturing to a pair of sleek metallic suits. "These will amplify your psionic abilities, allowing you to reach every ship in the fleet." As Ricky and Brin donned the suits, they felt their connection deepen even further. The ship's crew worked quickly to integrate the suits with the flagship's communication systems, creating a network that would channel their combined psionic energy. "We're ready to begin the transmission," a technician announced, her fingers hovering over a control panel. Ricky and Brin stepped onto a raised platform, their hands intertwined. As the transmission began, they closed their eyes, focusing their shared consciousness on projecting their story. The chamber hummed with energy as their memories flowed outward. Every ship in the fleet suddenly fell silent, as crew members, both human and Illyrian, were engulfed in a cascade of vivid images and emotions. They witnessed Ricky and Brin's first meeting, felt the initial confusion and fear give way to curiosity and then understanding. The pain of their transformation rippled through the psychic link, followed by the joy of their newfound unity. Across the fleet, weapons powered down as the impact of the hybrid bond resonated through every mind. Illyrians and humans alike stood in stunned silence, many with tears in their eyes as they experienced the profound connection between the two species. Admiral Crowthor stepped forward, his voice broadcasting alongside the psychic transmission. "My fellow Illyrians, and to our human adversaries," he began, his tone filled with emotion. "What you have just witnessed is the true potential of our two species. For too long, we have fought against what we could become together. As he spoke, explaining his change of heart and the possibility of peace, Ricky and Brin continued to project images of harmony and cooperation. The fleet remained transfixed, hostilities forgotten in the face of this unprecedented display. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the flagship. A rogue Illyrian cruiser, unmoved by the broadcast, had broken formation and was charging its weapons. Without hesitation, Ricky and Brin acted in perfect synchronization. They raised their hands, channeling their combined psionic energy through the amplification suits. A massive, shimmering shield materialized around Emperor Zorax's vessel, just as the rogue cruiser fired. The attack dissipated harmlessly against the psionic barrier, its energy absorbed and dispersed. The display of defensive power sent ripples of awe through the fleet. In response to this act of aggression, ships from both sides moved to surround the rogue cruiser. Human and Illyrian vessels, acting on a shared impulse, worked together to subdue the threat. The spontaneous cooperation became a powerful symbol of what could be achieved through unity. As the situation stabilized, Emperor Zorax's ship maneuvered alongside Admiral Kralthor's flagship. Airlocks engaged, creating a bridge between the two vessels. Ricky and Brin stood at the forefront as the doors opened. Their hybrid forms a living embodiment of the potential for human-Illyrian collaboration. Emperor Zorax and Admiral Kralthor approached each other, tension evident in their postures. Then, in a historic moment that reverberated throughout both fleets, they clasped hands. "Perhaps," Emperor Zorax rumbled, "it is time we discuss the terms of a true and lasting peace." As the two leaders began their talks, Dr. Zira approached Ricky and Brin, her eyes gleaming with scientific excitement. "Your hybrid physiology is unlike anything we've ever seen," she said, holding up a data pad filled with complex genetic diagrams. "The implications for both our species are enormous." Ricky and Brin listened intently as Dr. Zira explained her findings. Their unique bond had unlocked genetic potential that neither species had known existed. While their specific combination was one of a kind, the underlying compatibility between humans and Illyrians was universal. "This opens up possibilities not just for peaceful coexistence," Dr. Zira concluded, her voice filled with wonder, "but for a new, combined species that could inherit the best traits of both races." As the reality of this revelation sank in, Ricky and Brin realized that their journey was just getting started. The war might be ending, but the real work of bringing their two peoples together was just beginning. They exchanged a determined look, their shared consciousness already formulating plans for the challenges ahead. The flagship's communication system crackled to life, broadcasting a joint message from Emperor Zorax and Admiral Kralthor to the entire fleet. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," they announced, their voices united in purpose. "We call upon all ships to stand down and prepare for a new mission, the integration of our two great civilizations." As cheers erupted throughout the fleet, Ricky and Brin stood hand in hand, their hybrid forms a beacon of hope for the future. They knew that the path ahead would be filled with obstacles, but they were ready to face them together as the living bridge between two worlds.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.